بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Ladies and gentlemen, my dear colleagues in the academia, hello everyone, this is Hiba Al-Dosari and welcome to today's webinar. This is our 6th webinar of the 8th gathering of heads and supervisors of academic departments. Before we get started, let me explain how you may participate in today's webinar. You will have the opportunity to submit your questions to today's presenters by typing them into the chat box. You may send in your question at any time during the webinar. We will collect them and address them at the end of the webinar. Tonight, we have two amazing speakers. They will share with us their expertise and thoughts on innovative leadership and research in academia. Our first speaker for tonight is Professor Samar Al-Saggaf. دكتورة سمر الله يحفظها غنية عن التعريف، يكفينا اللقب الجميل أم المبتعثين وأنا أسميها أم الأكاديميين كمان رغم صغر السن. الله يسعدها. She held many leading positions. She was Vice Rector of the Educational Affairs and Health Affairs at Princess Noura University. Now she's a consultant in many sectors at King Abdulaziz University Vice Presidency, the National Center for Academic Accreditation and Evaluation. She also works as an adjunct professor at George Washington University and has been appointed as supervisor of the Department of Anatomy at the Faculty of Medicine in King Abdulaziz University. Let's welcome Professor Samar, and the mic is all yours.
شكرا يا هبة. Thank you so much. Good evening everybody. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you for these introductions. I be honored to be with you and with all these head of the department and supervisor of academic department in King Abdulaziz, and from, I think also from outside King Abdulaziz in different appointed position. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We will start with ما بتحرك يا هبة معلش معايا
طيب حاضر يا بروف.
لازم تعطوني أيوة. Today we will talk my lectures will introduce you to a little bit about leadership, innovative leadership, and why innovation in education. We need innovation throughout our educational process. What is the role of the department head in innovative leadership? And I will focus on 3 core of innovations for leadership departments: the teamwork, communications, and students. And we will enlighten some 21st century leadership skill, because we will face a new generations, and I will talk about these new generations. And then we will go to the discussions, and questions will take by the end of the sessions. So if I start with the leadership, I like to have the quotations of Maxwell. Maxwell said, a leader is the one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. And most of our leaders going with this amazing definitions. And in your life, in your academic life, or in your social life, you will face and you will meet with leaders and bosses. And usually you can recognize between both of them how the leader usually leads. And if we say that, if we look out to ourselves, our leadership styles, and what we usually sharing by doing similar things together, or similar thing we are doing all the time. For example, most of us are well observer. They observe well. They analyze what they have from data, from report, from recording. We held some responsibility in different way. Head of the department have in the same time, maybe vice dean, maybe we held also some of the committees, head of the committees. We read a lot of documents has to be read, or a lot of references. We believe in our team. We work in a network, a big networking. Most of our leaders, or we ourselves as a leaders, we set our priorities to make achievement, and successfully we lead by wisdom, humanity, and social intelligence. The process of the great leadership by Coases and Posners, they tried to summarize it in a way that they said common successful leadership, they have common things together. These are challenges, the process. They usually don't like to have the same process going the same way. They try to find a different way in the process to make it more shorter and more applicable. They inspire and share vision to their team. They enable others, they empower them, they delegate a lot of responsibility to them, and they enable them to solve problems. They model the way. They have, usually you will see that most of our great leaders, you will find it that they are role models. They lead by role models. And they encourage the heart. They share the glory of the flowers of the heart. And they usually keeping their pain inside. They never show it to others. The qualities of leaderships that we have it and other leaders have it, and the great leaders usually share these qualities by confidence and humanities. Encouraging. يعني بعض الأحيان أنت بتحاول تكون تأخذ قرارات شجاعة وقرارات لمصلحة الفريق. You trust your team, and you lead by sincere and honesty and integrity. For me, myself, I usually have this personal value whenever I have some positions. And I summarize this in one sentence called HAIL. أنتم معروف الهيل طعمه لذيذ وريحته لذيذة، لكن هي اختصار ل honesty, authenticity, integrity, and also I like to lead by love. Because love is wishing people well. You wish everybody to be better even than you. وهذا الحب اللي أنت بتحب فيه فريقك، بتحب فيه your students، بتحب فيه عملك اللي أنت بتشتغل فيه. for everybody, and I usually say love is something contagious، يعني يقوم بالعدوى. وما في منه، لو حتى زودت جرعات الحب there is no poisoning from love. Nobody will be poisoned. ما حد حيتسمم من كثرة الحب. So we have an idea about leadership. So what is innovations? How can innovations be related to leadership? ممكن يا هبة تحطوا لنا البولينج حق are you an innovative leaders؟ نشوف من الحاضرين إذا بيعتبر نفسه innovative leader ولا لا.
أيوة، موجود أمامكم التصويت. الله يرضى عليكم. We have this. Yes. Thank you so much. نوصل كده ناخد أقل من دقيقة. Less than a minute to complete it. We need at least 10% from the participants. Do you consider yourself as an innovative leader or not? Okay, we still have more. Yes.
Can we stop it?
Yes.
طيب 60% من ال participant they said that they consider themselves as innovative leader. ممتاز، وهذا شيء يعني حماس إني أنا معايا ناس بيعتبروا نفسهم innovative leaders. يمكن 36% هم لسه مش عارفين، لكن يمكن مع الجيرني حقت المحاضرة و explanations of innovations in education, I think you may change your mind and you will thought that you are a leader. ممكن نخلص يا هبة نروح للي بعده. So innovation طبعا الحاجات تغيرت في السنين. يعني عندنا من 1990 ايام ما انا اخذت الدكتوراه، وايام ما انتم يعني في ناس يعني ان شاء الله انتم شباب اكثر مني، لكن كانت حاجات كثيره احنا دحين بنعتبر انه هذه التليفونات something يعني amazing that التطبيقات والsharing documents و even meetings is doing by these phones. So innovation is making first different. You do things different and doing it better way. Innovation is a fundamental different way of doing things, which result usually to a better and perhaps different outcome. لازم يكون outcome مختلف. And not only you have a better or different outcome, but you have to have it significant, substantial, and sustainable. And this is innovations. So بيرجع تاني بيعلق يا هبة. Yes. The new leadership promoting innovations. Yes. وجدوا كثير من references إنه innovations أو innovated leaders they are combined together. ما في leaders ما هو innovated. Most of the leaders they are usually closely linked together. And the leader usually have to analyze challenges and they have to lead employee to develop strategies, to set up priorities and process, to use numerous tools. معظمنا هتلاقي نفسه مستعمل numerous tool in his process of strategy of leadership. But one important discipline is missing في كثير من many of the workshops that we attend, and we have a lot of leadership courses. They usually miss the innovation process. يعني دائما ما يتكلموا عن innovative leader و innovative process. وكثير من المانجر and executive اللي هم المديرين التنفيذيين لكثير من الشركات هم عارفين ومتأكدين that they have a lot of creative potential. يعني احنا في جامعة الملك عبد العزيز او في كل الجامعات او في كل المؤسسات نعرف انه في عندنا كثير من المبدعين وكثير من الافكار الابداعيه وكثير من لكن بالحقيقه احنا ما نعرف how to manage them. احنا كيف ندير هؤلاء الاداره الصح للانوفيتورز. So what is the role of innovative leaders؟ انا حاولت اني الخصها من كذا reference و I share it with you انه كيف هذا الانوفيتيف leader usually do. Usually they create professional learning. Learning it's not only you learn students and that's it. تعطي له curriculum وتمشي. You be sure that your students have a continued based professional learning forever, for life. So you make them task of teaching as assessment and observations because you want to be sure that this learning is continuous and your students will be continuously have learning ability or learning style. They do not delegate creativity. They lead, they innovate, and they lead to the creativity. هم ما بيعملوا تفويض للإبداعية أو للابتكار. هم يبتكروا وهم يبدعوا ويقودوا لهذا الإبداع والابتكار. They enhance changes through collective creativity. هم بيحاولوا إنه يساعدوا على إنه كل اللي عنده creativity knowledge أو idea يساعدوا هم to empower هم ويمكنوهم. They change rules into principle. يلاقي نفسه أو تلاقي نفسك بتغير القواعد وتجعلها مبادئ. أصبحت مبدأ عندك إنه الانوفيشن ده مبدأ، الكرياتيفيتي مبدأ. It's not only a rules أو قانون. They decide and systemize. هتلاقيهم عندهم blueprint واضح للبروفيشناليزم، للديفلوبمنت، للاستراتيجي، للريسورسز. هو عارف بوضوح إيش البلوبرنت اللي بيستعملها. They ensure digital access of infrastructure. طبعا بيستعمل كثير التقنية وناو capability of technology for student and for the staff. They delegate responsibility but for accountable place and to accountable person. And they practice effective communication. And we'll هتشوفوا effective communications, it will be engaged throughout the process of creativity and innovations. So innovation process, it is an organization method that divides the uncertainties with an innovation project to clear subdivide steps of decisions point. ليش بيعمل هذا subdivision و clear subdivision to drive development through efficiency while at the same time avoiding any potential risk. يعني مو معنى انك انت تبغى تكون innovative leader وبنفس الوقت تدخل التيم حقك في مخاطر وفي ريسك بغنى عنها. يعني مثلا ابغى اعمل تطبيق جديد للماده حقتي واعمل تطبيقات على يعني في التليفون ولا في try to innovate something like this. وانا في الغالب كل اللي عندي لا يعرف التقنيه او كل اللي ما عندهم هذه اللاكتشري في التقنيه. I have to be sure about the risk اللي حتتبعوا فيها. الموديلنج اللي دائما بيعملوا فيه في البروموشن of innovations that usually the leader empower idea faculty team بيعمل على تمكينهم. they gather the ideas, they review the ideas, بيعمل prioritize يعني بيحولها إلى أولويات and he put the plan, execute the plan, graded and then evaluated. يعني ممكن تكون انت من الانوفيتد او تشجع الانوفيشنز في الليدرشيب ويبقى عندك مليان افكار، لكن في الاخر ولا واحده من الافكار هذه استطعت انك انت تخرجها بانوفيتد way to lead the team in an innovative way. So this is the process has to be very clear. تبحث عن الفرص opportunities، تشوف ايش الفرص اللي موجوده في السوق مثلا عشان او الترند اللي موجود عشان انا اعمله لماي جرادويت. يعني مثلا هل هو التعاوني التدريبي، هل هو التدريب المنتهي بالتوظيف، ايش الترند او opportunities اللي موجوده عندي في السوق عشان my students have to follow. كيف تعمل الايديا، كيف تبتدي انك تعمل لها development وinnovation the process of the ideas. تحط التيم مع بعضهم، ماركت الايديا. مش معقول انا اسوي افكار وابتدعها مع التيم واغير لكن ماني عارفه اسوق هذه الافكار، كلها حتفضل في الادراج وما حد حيقدر يسوي لها شيء. رب البروتوتايبنج، اوثقها واوثق هذه الافكار واحط لها البلان اللي هي تستطيع ان انت تعمل لها executions. Innovation by culture، لازم يكون تخلق culture. You have to make innovative cultures أو الميثودز في الديبارتمنت عندك عشان تجعل دائما الأفكار الخلاقة والإبداعية والإنوفيشنز مستمرة في الديبارتمنت عندك. هذه مختصر لكيف أنت usually generate idea. وعلى فكرة generating idea and design thinking and design intelligence usually it is a process. ومن الناس اللي بيشتغلوا فيه بيعرفوا كيف يعملوا generation of idea they make the concept and they evaluate and put the priorities. هذه ليها special fields and special متخصصين يعني specialist فيها. لكن you can train. By training you can do that. Then you develop, you implement, you put the roadmap. خلاص أنا مثلا أبغى أدرس اللغة الصينية في اللغات. خلاص أنا الفكرة هذه جديدة، حندرس اللغة الصينية. طب كيف حندرسها؟ بأي طريقة حندرسها؟ إيش الرود ماب حقتي عشان أنجح وأدرس الصين؟ هم الترينيز اللي حيكونوا موجودين معايا، من فين حجيب الستاف؟ كل هذه الاشياء لازم I have to realize it and I have to find it واحط لها مونيتور وكمان اعمل لها evaluations. So why in education؟ ليه بنحتاج الانوفيشن education؟ دائما نسمع الانوفيشن في المصانع، نسمع في الشركات، لكن يمكن يعني انه نسمع innovation education هذا شيء جديد بالنسبه لكن هو بدا من 1990s almost innovation education. It's making easier for teacher and student to do things and they want to do. مهم جدا وانت بتعمل innovations انه ال end customer اللي هم ال students and the teacher you make it easy for them. You cannot innovate things that never been executed. For example, if أنا عندي طلاب psychology وأنا من ال innovation idea إني أنا أبغى أدرسهم statistics وmath. طب أنا كيف حدرس statistics وماث وit's not easy for them؟ لا للتيتشر ولا عندي التيتشر المناسبين ولا للستودنتس، الباك جراوند حقهم ما هو mathematics. So it is difficult for me إني أنا أسوي idea cannot be end by end user. لازم الend user في الآخر يستطيع إنه هو يستعملها، ما أعمل complicating things وإنه والله هو innovated لكن في الآخر عشان الcomplications حقته هو أنا ما أقدر أسويه. عشان تضمن الانوفيشن it have to be succeed, scale and sustain. لازم تنجح فيه ولازم تعمله على big scale and you have to sustain it إنه يكون مستمر. Innovation in education, usually the educators need to think of innovating as those actions significantly challenge key assumptions. يعني أنت في عندك حاجات بتفكر فيها تقول والله أنا innovative أنا حفكر خارج الصندوق. It's not always you think outside the box. You have to think as well within the box عشان تعمل حاجات outside the box. مو غلط إني أسوي حاجات outside the box لكن أنا أدرس الانفايرمنت حقتي، أدرس الاريا البيئة اللي عندي الداخلية أنا إيش بسوي فيها. فمثلا أعطيكم إكزامبل من البيئة. لما أنا يكون عندي دراسات إسلامية وهذه فكرنا فيها في جامعة الأميرة نورة، الدراسات الإسلامية واللغة العربية. طب هي بتدرس بطريقة اللي هي traditional إنه عندنا المستوى الأول الثاني الثالث الرابع وبتدرس إنه مادة عامة لجميع الطلاب. طيب فكرنا كيف نخليها باسكت. How we transfer teaching of English Arabic language and Islamic tradition إنه كيف نحولها إلى باسكت. بمعنى لو أنا طبيب حديله أخلاقيات المهنة وحركز عليها في الدراسات الإسلامية، لو أنا ممرض، لو أنا مهندس، لو أنا محامي، لازم أدخل حاجة في أخلاقيات المهنة. في اللغة العربية لو أنا عملتها باسكت يعني برضو أنا هحتاج تقارير خاصة للمحامين، تقارير خاصة للمهندسين، تقارير خاصة للأطباء، فأنا بحاول أعلمهم اللغة اللي حيستعملوها في البراكتس حقهم أو البروفيشنز in the new when they graduated. So what is the difference between improvement and innovations? دائما احنا بنفكر انه احنا لما بنغير بنحط الماده اكس ونرفعها الى من الليفل 1 الى الليفل 3 ولا الليفل 4 ولا العكس، ولا شويه اغير في الميثودولوجي اوف اسسمنت ولا انا هطلع نفس الاوتكم او ديفرنت اوتكم. الامبروفمنت او الديفلوبمنت مطلوب، لكن عشان تقول ان انا innovate you have to bring a little bit a novel idea, a better things with a better outcome. So we need solution that will make both different and better and significant and substantial and sustainable outcome. So remember that to innovate is to change, لكن change is not innovations. عشان تعمل innovation you have to make a change in your curriculum, a change in your trend, a change in your process. لكن مو معنى انك انت غيرت بعض الاشياء، زودت ساعات هنا، نقصت ساعات هنا، انك انت you innovate things. No. So both different and better must be significant and substantial and sustainable. أي تغيير وأي different هتعمله لازم يكون significant و substantial و sustainable. طيب كرول of the department، لو احنا قبل ما نخش على rule of the department خلينا نعمل لهم polling يا هبة. Which company do you think they lead more by innovations؟
ننزل الآن التصويت الثاني. نعم الحين ننزله.
Which company do you think lead more by innovation? Google, IBM ولا نوكيا؟ خلاص كويس يا هبة.
كفاية تصويت هنا؟
أيوه عندنا. ممتاز، عندنا 80% قالوا جوجل و14% قالوا اي بي ام ونوكيا 5%. وانا اتفق معاكم نوكيا تراجعت كثير في الانوفيشنز لاسباب كثيره منها الاديوكيشنز. they don't educate their employee ولا هم شجعوا الكرييتيف ايديا ولا شجعوا الانوفيتيف leaders. so اذا اخذنا بسرعه الجوجل في 2014 جوجل كانت rank 1 في Fortune.com according to the all work of company. Why they are like this? Because عملوا أشياء فعلا خارج الصندوق أو عملوا أشياء different than any companies وابتدوا إن هم يستقطبوا more employee و smart employee because they encourage their employee to spend 20% of their work for personal project. يعني مثلا لو أنا بعرف الخياطة بخيط if I make some trading or something أو أنا I do stock market ببيع أسهم ولا شيء, they empower them and they encourage them to do their personal project. Also they do some management يعني their finance. يعني أنا مو بشتغل مع جوجل وأنا ما أعرفش أعمل financing لي my budget، لا بيعطوهم كورسات to finance and so on. يعني هم عملوا حاجات creativity ل their employment. IBM ترى من الشركات اللي متماسكة في السوق الماركت أو الستوك ماركت. لو لاحظتوا الأزرق اللي هو هذا الاي بي ام، لاحظوا إن هي ما طلعت في بيك، يعني ما طلعت في بيك عالي، لكنها ملتزمة بالستوك ماركت، ما نزلت الستوك ماركت كثير. أكثر واحدة ما طلع في عندها خسارات أو طلعت ونزلت، فهذه لأن هي استعملت كثير من الانوفيشنز and they changed by platform shift وعملوا كثير من الديفلوبمنت in their product. طيب أنا كديبارتمنت معقولة إنه إحنا كديبارتمنت أكاديميا we can do the same as business models? Yes we can do. كيف حنعملها؟ How can we do that? Usually a leader في الديبارتمنت عنده 4 core business: creativity, achievement, strategic planning and effective communications. والachievement مو بس رقم، مو والله أنا عملت تطوير ل4 مواد، أنا سويت KPI، أنا خرجت 500 طالب. No, achievement هي رحلة. You enjoy رحلة التغيير ورحلة الإنجاز. And you empower creativity. You try to empower your creative environment in your department, and you plan it well to have this. لو لاحظنا إنه أي leader usually have this inclusiveness. كلنا معظمنا حتلاقي نفسك إنك أنت عندك vision, you plan well, بتشتغل على التيم وورك، بعض الأحيان بتستعمل الفاينانسينج، you make top management, structuring things, flexibility in other things, you make relation, responsibility، بس مو دائما إحنا بنستعملها في كل مكان. بعض الأحيان حتستعمل التيم وورك أكثر من إنك تكون منفرد. بعض الأحيان حتعمل البلانينج في بداية العام بس مش طول الوقت. الفلكسبيليتي حسب الحالات اللي تجيك حتكون فلكسبل ولا لا، لكنها أنت almost you lead by these strategies. أنا أخذت example من my anatomy department. أنا رجعت دحين لقسمي العزيز وقسمي اللي بحبه على نفسي، وأنا دائما أقول إذا أردت أن تدخل التاريخ فتخصص تشريح. الانوفيشن اناتومي ديبارتمنت اللي بدينا نسويه من 2 سنين، واشكر رئيسة القسم والجريت ثانكس تو اول اناتومي ستاف من طلبه والستودنتس وجميع الامبلوي. First of all, we changed the name of anatomy. غيرناه من anatomy إلى clinical anatomy عشان يعطينا broad spectrum إنه إحنا ممكن ندخل سوق العمل وندخل ندرس في الclinical specialties and do more research on that. Also, we established new virtual anatomy lab. إن شاء الله بعد الإجازة حنفتتح أول virtual anatomy lab. We teach anatomy and histology using a clinical skill lab and teaching fun. وحوريكم بعض الأشياء اللي بنستعملها في الفن of teaching students. We ask for access to Alzheimer anatomy, virtual anatomy. وأتمنى إنه هذا اللينك يعني تشوفوه وتشوفوا جمال الريفرنس هذا اللي إحنا بنستعمله. طبعاً working as اشتغلنا على competition سميناها anatomy versus art. نبغى نخلي الطلاب اللي عندهم هوايات يورونا الاناتومي عن طريق الفن، كيف يشتغل هذا يعني كيف ندرسهم عن طريق الفن. حنسوي أول national atlas histology على مستوى المملكة، يكون atlas ويكون interactive atlas، وكمان حنسوي أول لقاء ل first anatomy department head meetings في السعودية. فبشكر الجميع اللي عندنا في الاناتومي ان هم ساعدونا ان نوصل لهذه الموتيفيتد ايدياز والانوفيتد ايدياز. طبعا هذه بعض الاشياء اللي استعملناها للطلبه through the كاهوتي، وكمان using different media different لما نتكلم عن الانوفيشنز في الليدرشيب ان تيم وورك. يعني ايش تيم وورك؟ ليش بعمل تيم وورك؟ التيم وورك عشان اعمل اتشيفمنت، عشان اعمل مور جاذرينج لي في الاخر اسوي اتشيف لتارجت انا احتاجه، لجول انا احتاجه. فانا عندي 2 جولز للديبارتمنت عشان هو he wants to achieve mission through the team، وجول لي انا كليدرشيب ان انا بكتشف I discover leader through the team because I prepare the leadership skill through experience, through application, through coaching. فبيعطيني more advance إني أنا أبتدي أكتشف leaders أقدر أنا أسوقهم للكلية وللجامعة. طبعاً الفاليو اوف تيم وورك أنا ما حدخل فيها، هذه أهمية إنك أنت يكون عندك تيم وورك. وكثير من الجامعات مو بس أنا، في قصة من بنسلفانيا إنه لما عملوا الجروبينج هذا وعملوا التيم وورك والبوزيتيفيتي اللي صارت في التيم وورك، صار حتى يلعبوهم يعني they work by fun. فكان معروف انه كل تيم عنده يروح له كره حمراء، لو متاخر حيروح له كره اورنج، فبيلعبوا حتى في التيم ثرو اتشيفمنت بيسويها الانوفيتد ليدرز. طبعا I have to support my team through guidance, simulation, communications. اول اهميه الكوميونيكيشن يا جماعه. effective communication as a leader, you don't have a good proper communications, you lead your messages. ما حتقدر توصل تبغاها، ولا حتقدر توصل احلامك، ولا حتقدر توصل الانوفيشن حقك للعالم، او حتى بس لزملائك، حتى للاكاديميه. So we have to identify مين هم الكونتاكت حقونا، مين ايش الكوميونيكيشن بلان. how can I lead this message. لو أنا أخذت scientific department يعني academic department، يا ترى مين هم الكونتاكت؟ أنا عندي faculty، عندي student، عندي graduate، عندي employee، عندي شركات، عندي university staff، عندي university يعني أقران تانيين، عندي يعني عندي كثير من لازم أرتب البلانز إنه كيف أعمل لهم كونتاكت، وهعمل لكم example لهذا الكونتاكت. So you don't need only to effective communications، مو بس تكون effective، you have to sustain innovation of it. عشان الانوفيشن حقك ما يضيع، ما يروح leading by innovation إذا أنت ما كان عندك sustainability في الefforts. طبعا لو أخذنا example أنا الكوميونيكيشن مع الايجنسي إيش لازم أسوي؟ طبعا كلكم معظمكم الemployment and partnership agency you work with them now hand by hand. You make a cooperative training عشان ending by employment. You make, for example, you can make exhibitions and display the outcome of the students, and now we can make it virtually. You do some project with the partnership في private. You make the consultant board. من أهم الأشياء في الemployment and partnership agency اللي أظن حتنفع كثير من الأوتكم حقوننا إنه كيف أنا I built some partnership عشان أعمل professional certificate. وأنا أظن computer science عاملين حاجات زي كده مع سيسكو، مع IBM، مع أبل، عاملين some sort of grand professional certificate. لكن لو أخذناها من تخصصات أخرى، يعني أخذنا المحاسبة، أخذنا المحاماة، أخذنا البروجكت مانجر، في كثير من البروفيشنال سيرتيفيكت إن أنا أخرج فيه الطالب مو بس educationally معاه شهادة، لكن professionally كمان معاه certificate اللي تساعد إن هو to be employed. زي كمان التريننج lead to employment، هذه من الأشياء البارتنرشيب المهمة. كيف كمان تعمل collaboration with other educational institute، كيف تستقطب البروفيشنال يعني speaker to your department، distinguished speaker، distinguished visitor students، learn by best practice. تعمل ممكن نعمل virtual meeting معاهم ونشوف ايش البيست براكتيك، عشان كده اسمه department in the kingdom، عشان نسمع البيست practicing ونستفيد منها. الكوميونيكيشن زي ما بنعمل communications in all level، طبعا انا ما حقدر يعني اكلمكم لانه كل من الليفل هذه ليها يعني different strategy واهميه عشان انت تكون effective فيها. لكن أنا عايزة أنبه على ال effectiveness of electronic communications. You have to be careful. محتاجينها نعم، محتاجين نكون إنه up to the standard. لكن take care. 20 years you build your reputation and 5 minutes you can ruin it by tweet غلط أو by حاجة يعني ممكن تأثر على مستقبلك. But we have to be careful about using social media. Students يا جماعة innovative teaching أو innovative teachers هو اللي بيعمل support and development of the student skill. هو they can help them to thrive future life and work. هو اللي حيعلمهم lifelong learning. Teaching is an art. Art for what? For assisting discovery. معظمنا حيكون عنده أكيد قصة كيف التيتشر علمني إني أكتشف نفسي، أو في teachers ما يمكن أنساهم على الأشياء اللي هم كانوا يسوون إياها أو كانوا يبدعوا في طريقتهم في الشرح أو في طريقتهم لتعليمي المادة. The students has to be our core in every leading positions. لو احنا خلينا الستودنتس our core business هو اللي بيدور حواليه كل التغييرات، بيدور حواليه كل الانوفيشنز، سواء كان budgeting، سواء كان team work، سواء كان vision، flexibility، administration، كل حاجة احنا بنسويها because we want to if we make the focusing on our students, that means we have to train them, we have to value their benefits, we have to guide them, we have to take care of them, we have to let them work in teamwork, we have to improvement. هذه الفوكس of our students. وما في أحد بدع كليدر إلا عن طريق إنه هو فوكس على الستودنتس. أنا بالنسبة لي شخصياً this is my trait of guidance to students. I trust them, I help them, I stand with my students, I encourage them, and I allocate resources for them. لو أعطيت بعض الأمثلة عن students and what we are doing to the students through the curriculum and علاقات مع التدريب. في جامعة الملك عبد العزيز لما كنت عميدة عملنا التدريب التعاوني مع صفولة. وللأمانة مو بس الكمبيوتر ساينس اشتغلوا مع صفولة، الكمبيوتر ساينس كلية الأسنان صارت لهم اللي هي البورتبل كلينيك سويناها عن طريق صفولة. الدراسات الإسلامية سووا أخلاقيات العمل في صفولة، اللغة العربية سووا تقارير صفولة، الماركتينج سووا بلانز وخطط للماركتينج لصفولة. فجميع الطالبات خليناهم يشتغلوا مع صفولة على بروجكت فعلا تخدم سوق العمل. طبعا في أمريكا يمكن هذه التجربة اللي أنا يعني ما أقدر أنساها واللي سميت بأم المبتعثين، تجربة فعلا فيها innovations. ليش؟ لأنه كانت القبول في الطب تقريبا زيرو، كان ما في أحد يتقبل في الطب. لما نروح لأمريكا في 2011-2012 بدأت تظهر السعودية في الريبورت حقت الECFMG، يتبارى في الECFMG 40,000 متقدم سنويا من جميع أنحاء العالم. إنك أنت تعمل مقاعد لطلابك وتصل من المرتبة 9 إلى المرتبة 4 وفي أحسن الجامعات، مو أي جامعات، مو والله رحنا جامعات مثلا يعني not ranked well، لا رحنا هارفرد، رحنا جورج تاون ومايو كلينيك وكليفلاند، all the top university we have been there. Why? Because we innovate the change, and we innovate by leadership change through bridging the students, making more partnership مع الجامعات السعودية والأمريكية، وكمان عملنا enhancing the students level of knowledge. في جامعة الأميرة نورة كان عندنا ملتقى مرة مهم، ملتقى جهات التدريب خاصة في المجالات الطبية والصحية. فكان هذا عمل لنا more exposure for the private sectors، لدرجة إنه البرايفت سيكتور قال أعطونا طالباتكم إحنا كمان حنعطيهم مكافآت زيادة على مكافآت الامتياز، لأنه وجدوا إنه الكوميونيكيشنز والنتوركينج اللي معانا والأوبننس والشفافية والترانسبيرنسي هي اللي فتحت على القطاع الخاص. شركة بوينغ لأول مرة تدعم طالبات كليات صحية، كانوا عندهم مشاريع في دعم السمع وتأثير النويز في طالبات كلية الصحة وعلم التأهيل، وكمان بدأت تدعمنا بكليات أخرى. انطلقنا بجائزات على المستوى المحلي وتمثيل المملكة في المستوى الإقليمي. كل هذه من leader innovation and communication with private and focusing on the students' skills and education. آخر حاجة حتكلم على 21 first leader skills. To which generation you belong؟ لأي generation إحنا كلنا هحط لكم بسرعة كده الجنريشنز اللي بيسموها. فطبعا معظمكم أكيد حيكون through the millennium. Now we are facing and we are teaching the Z generation. معظمنا عم بدرس الجي generation. مين هم دول الجي generations؟ هدول عندهم special characteristic، عندهم inclusiveness, curiosity, self-motivation, generosity and perseverance. And you have to take care when you do some curriculum to have this characteristic in your mind why you are doing that. مو كده بس، عشان تبقى innovative leader you have to lead your student to have the skills of international skill for graduates. أنا ما أبغى my students بس يدخلوا في المجال الناشونال أو في مجال المحلي، أنا أبغاهم فعلا ينافسوا على المجالات المحلية وينافسوا على الوظائف الدولية زي المحلية بالضبط. فعشان أفهم هذا الشيء I have to know what are the skills internationally needed. فلو شفتوا الثلاثة skills اللي تغيرت من 2015 ل 2020 اعتمدوا كثيرا على complex problem solving، على critical thinking، على creativity. يعني لو فكرنا لما نيجي نفكر كيف نعمل innovations بلاش نفكر بالمحاضرات التقليدية، لازم نفكر بالمحاضرات اللي تعتمد على البروجكت discussions، على البروبلم سولفينج، على الكوميونتي problems. So we have to prepare our students for these challenges and to these skills. This is a small test that where are we today. لو any one of us go and do this test وراح للآيباد وشاف هو كم من التطبيقات هذه هو يعرفها. فتقريبا اللي سواها أعطانا إنه هو أخذ 35% من الليترسي سكور، يعني هو بس يعرف 35 من 54. فتخيلوا طبعا لو الزي جنريشن حيعطينا هاي سكور عن ذات. I will end by the 3 C's education in the 21st century, which is how to learn your student through communication, creativity, and collaboration. وأرجع تاني هنا يقول لك 21st century يركز على الكوميونيكيشن والeffective communications. Now هبة ممكن تحطي لنا are you now innovative leader لما سمعت عن الانوفيشن والانوفيشن educations؟ ممكن نحط البولينج؟
Yes موجود.
ممكن تصوتوا؟ يا سلام، هذا توقعته انه معظمكم حيلاقي نفسه فعلا بيمارس الانوفيتد ليدرز من غير ما يكون عارف انه هو فعلا هذه الانوفيشنز. احسنتم. شكرا دكتور. اعتقد انه 50% صوتوا انه فعلا بعد ما سمعوا الانوفيتد ليدرز والانوفيشن اديوكيشنز انه انا فعلا امثل هذا البارت من الانوفيشنز. طيب هنا بسرعة بس 14 example of innovation in higher education. كيف استعملوا الجامعات العالمية كثير من السمارتر idea في الاناليسيس. they change the revenue solution, they do the free, they do the 3D printing, they open curriculum. صارت الكوريكولم مفتوحة للجميع. في مثلا قالوا الفري تويشنز. في ناس قالوا ما حنروح حنعمل فيديو ستريمينج، ما حنعمل محاضرات العادية. فتراي تو يعني they innovate. وفي كثير من الفيديوهات في اللينك هذا إذا إن شاء الله أعطتكم إياها إدارة الملتقى. If you go through this you will find a lot of features and a lot of videos. You will يعني حتستمتع إنك تتفرج عليها. Innovative teaching does not only support development. يعني عشان أنا أعمل أو أدرس 21 century أو Z generation لازم أدرس عن طريق innovative teachings. So education with technology and innovation will lead to lifelong learning with positive attitude, motivating behavior, and effective communications. طيب, do we need to learn more about innovation؟ هل نحتاج إنه إحنا نتعلم أكثر عن innovation؟ يا ترى إيش سوت الجامعات؟ وهذا اللي حختم فيه اليوم كلامي. الآن معظم الجامعات والتوب يعني schools they try to have a center for innovation education. عرفوا قيمة إنه مو بس إني أنا أهتم إن يكون عندي براءة اختراع، لا، أنا لازم اللي بيعلم الطالب براءة الاختراع، اللي بيعلمه الانوفيشن has to be innovative leader, have to be innovative teachers. So I have to have this center of innovations في مختلف. لو شفتوا ليفربول، هارفارد، CIT، كلهم صار عندهم joining التكنولوجي مع الانوفيشن مع الاديوكيشن. حتى في صار ليها ماستر يعني ماستر بروجرام وفي ليها تريننج بروجرام انه how to be an innovative leader in education. جامعة الملك عبد الله بدأت عملت الانوفيشن they link it with the economy development. وبعد الجامعات بدأت تفكر بمراكز الابتكار ومراكز الريادة، لكن كلها تشتغل على كيف أطلع entrepreneurship، كيف أطلع مبتكر أو ريادي. لكن ما فكرت إنه عشان أطلع الريادي هذا وأطلع المبتكر هذا لازم أصلاً البروسيس كله من القائد إلى الكوريكولم إلى البروسيس أوف education يكون في innovation، في innovative education. الجامعة يمكن عبد العزيز برضو كان لها كثير من المبادرات زي مركز الابتكار الاجتماعي، التصنيع والابتكار، وكان في معمل الابتكارات الإلكترونية. تخيلوا معايا إنه لو كانت كل هذه الجامعات في المناطق الإدارية هذه كل جامعة أسست innovation center in education, how much we will gain and how much leaders and teaching innovative leader and innovative teachers will create more upscaling students. أظن أنا كده خلصت، وشكرا للدكتورة هبة، وأتمنى أكون يعني خلصت في الوقت.
يعطيكي ألف عافية والله بروف سمر. Thank you so much for this amazing talk. Kindly stay with us for the Q&A session at the end of our webinar. الله يعطيكي العافية. Our dear audience, please type your questions in the chat box and let's move to our next speaker. Our next guest is Michael Snyder, the Stanford Asherman Professor, Chair of Genetics and the Director of the Center of Genomics and Personalized Medicine. Snyder received his PhD training in California Institute of Technology and carried out his postdoctoral training at Stanford University. He is a leader in the field of functional genomics and proteomics and one of the major participants of the ENCODE project. He is a co-founder of many biotechnology companies, and he's currently serves on the advisory board of a number of companies. Tonight, he is going to share with us some highlights into research and the role of big data and health. And now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to Dr. Michael. Hello, Dr. Michael.
Hello there. Let's see. I think we're all set. So many of you probably know we're under a revolution right now in terms of collecting big data. And that's the topic I want to talk to you about today, how we can use big data to better manage people's health. And I think you'll see this particularly relevant, not just to trying to manage people's health in general, but also in this particular COVID-19 crisis. I think some of these technologies are immediately applicable to try to better manage the pandemic. So I'm going to start by just telling you the problem from the chronic disease side, but I will argue that there's an equal problem on the infectious disease side as the current pandemic indicates. Just move the pictures out of the way here. So basically, virtually every area of chronic disease is on the rise, so whether it's cancers, mental health disorders. These are mostly from the US, but they translate pretty well across the world. Diabetes, so on and so forth. This is the percent individuals that people think will rise over the ensuing years, over this 20-year period. And these days, at least in the US, it's thought that about half the people get cancer in their lifetime. And so these numbers are quite staggering. In terms of being a health crisis, it's also an economic crisis. This is for US numbers again, but I think they're rising to similar levels elsewhere. But much of what we spend on healthcare, which is as you see, a $3.5 trillion industry in the US, 90% of it's spent on chronic and mental health conditions. And so actually being able to better manage people's health and try to make healthier people should be of enormous impact, not only for just generally keeping people healthy and happier and healthy lifestyle, but also for economic purposes as well. Now, the biggest problem these days is that the way we manage health is really, I would argue, entirely wrong. In fact, I would argue the field of medicine needs to be totally changed. And it's wrong at many different levels. It's very focused on treating people when they're ill. As such, it's very reactive. When people are healthy, we typically measure very few things, and we also don't measure them very often. How often do you get a checkup when you are very healthy? And probably the worst part is this one here. Nearly every decision about your health is made on population-based measurements. And instead, I think most people would agree, we should be very focused on keeping people healthy. As such, be very proactive. We're certainly capable of measuring many, many more things than we currently do, and measuring things that are more useful even than some of the things that are currently getting measured. The frequency, I would argue, should depend on what your health risk is in certain areas and what your trajectories look like. And I think all of us would agree that it's best to manage people's health based on individual-based measurements and knowledge rather than population-based. And so we should really be focused on precision health rather than precision medicine. And this is a major theme of the Stanford Medical School. So just to illustrate this point, just much as one type of clothing does not fit all people identically. I don't think we'd all wear exactly the same clothes. The same is true for health. Many of you may or may not know this, but this is now on Fahrenheit, but I could just easily put it on centigrade. You're probably told that your oral temperature when you put a thermometer in your mouth is 98.6. And it turns out, first of all, that number is not right. If you look at many studies out there, this is a study of close to 3,000 healthy people. That number is more like 97.5. But more importantly, it's a spread. So this is in fact the 25th quartile, so 25% of people have their normal temperature at 94.6, and 75% have it at 99.1. So in today's world, if you were to go to a physician and this is your normal baseline temperature, and you were up 4 degrees, if you're at 98.6, they would measure you, they'll say you're normal, everything's fine, you should be here, go home, you know, why are you here? When in fact you're up 4 degrees Fahrenheit, you really are quite ill. And so I guarantee you're ill if you're at 4 degrees Fahrenheit. So the point is you really need to know what your individual baseline is so that you can detect disease at its earliest time. So as I mentioned, we're very keen on bringing big data into better managing people's health. And so just thinking about health for a moment, if you think about it, it's influenced by many things. Your DNA is certainly a very important part of it. I'm chair of genetics, so we think about DNA a lot, but all these other things impact your health as well. Many of them interact with your DNA. So pathogens and various exposures, stress, the food you eat, exercise, these will all impact your health in very important ways. And so we can measure many of these things now. For example, you can measure exercise and activity with smartwatches, things like that. You can even measure some of these exposures. If there's time, I'll talk about that today, the food you eat. Some of it's harder, like measuring people's food is kind of cumbersome, but you can do it. And certainly people's genomes you can measure. So the point is that we are capable of measuring many of these things, but not always so easily. But you can measure their effects on a person by actually looking at their biochemistry and doing things, because there's now very advanced technologies to be able to measure people in incredible detail. And so many of you may know we can now sequence people's DNA, their genome. It costs less than $1,000, and in fact, there's some companies that are doing this for about $300, not counting the interpretation, but they can do this pretty well. And so you can get your DNA sequenced, and possibly many of you have done this already. You can also now measure many, many molecules in your blood and in your urine using mass spectrometers. These are the things that are in airports when they're trying to measure, you know, bombs and stuff. They're very, very sensitive instruments, so they let you measure molecules in incredible detail. So we can measure these out of your molecules in your blood and urine now, tens of thousands even. And then there's also wearable devices, which is becoming very, very popular as well, at least in the US and now in other locations. And this is going to be particularly important for the current pandemic, as I'll show you in a minute. And so we have been actually exploring using these and actually other kinds of information. There's other information you can draw in. You can actually draw in people's electronic health records, digital information, the way people actually interact with their smartphones or the internet can say a lot about people's mental state, so you can get information that way. You can also bring in other kinds of digital information. And so it's now possible, I won't talk as much about these, we're not doing as much ourselves in these areas, exploring this a little bit, but we are working with the other kinds of technologies. And so what we've been doing is exploring, trying to bring in these different technologies to be able to better manage your health. And we're trying to do this ultimately at scale for millions of people. That's the goal. And so a number of years ago, it's actually 10 years ago now, we set up some very, very deep characterization of people. And these nomenclatures, don't worry so much, but we can sequence people's DNA, that's their genome, but also then measures many molecules. This is mostly out of blood. Some of these, like all your metabolites, OM stands for a collection of molecules. So your proteome is all your proteins, and your metabolome is all your metabolites. And so we can measure as many molecules as you can imagine out of people's blood, and we do some of this out of the urine as well. And you may have heard of the microbiome. This is what's in your gut. You have 10 times as many bacterial cells in your gut as you do in your human body. And so these are very, very important for your health. The microbiome is important for basically digesting your food, making essential vitamins, things like that. And so we can measure this as well. And then we do deep clinical testing, stress questionnaires. About 7 years ago, I'll talk about this a little later, we've added on biosensors. And then we've added on some sort of sophisticated measures for following people's heart activity, that's stress echoes, glucose control. And so we've been following, it's a small group of people, about 109, I can make this later. And basically we sample them every 3 months when they're healthy. So we sample them longitudinally, and then we'll take many, many more samples, typically about 5 to 7 additional sample when adverse events come along, like viral infections, things like that. And so you might say, why are we doing all this? What are we doing here? We're trying to actually understand what it means to be healthy. How does that differ amongst different people? How does that change over time? And in particular, we're very interested in how when you use these very advanced technologies I mentioned before, can they be used to better manage people's health over what we're doing now? And I'm going to jump to the chase, basically, and tell you actually just from the first 3 years of studying, a little bit over 3 years, 109 people, we had 49 major health discoveries, things that are really, really important for people's health. And if you count hypertension, it's 67. So for example, we caught people with early lymphoma, some people with, they're called pre-cancers. These are early stage cancers caught very, very early. We caught 2 people with serious heart defects in the cardiovascular space and other people with heart issues or plaques in their arteries. We also found people with diabetes and so on and so forth. We really caught quite a few different things. So the point is these advanced measurements were very, very powerful for actually capturing information that helped manage people's health. And so I'll show you a few examples of this. The genome sequencing, just by sequencing people's DNA, just from the first 70 people, we had 12 people where we learned something very, very important about their health. And just to give you one example, one individual had a mutation in this gene that suggested he was at high risk for cardiomyopathy. And we did a follow-up test, and sure enough, they actually had a heart defect. Then we had another person who actually had a mutation in this gene. They did a whole body MRI follow-up, and sure enough, they had an early stage cancer, which was caught and then removed by surgery. And it was in their thyroid, and they're actually able to maintain a lot of their thyroid. So they're actually perfectly fine, but it was caught because we sequenced their DNA. And here's one you're probably familiar with. Another individual has not had issues yet, but does have a mutation in the BRCA gene, which puts that individual at high risk for breast cancer. So we found many, many different things. Here's another interesting one. There were 9 people, I forgot to say, that it's an older cohort of 53.4, many of the folks were either diabetic or pre-diabetic, as I'll get to in a minute. And in fact, there were 9 who were thought to be diabetic. And one of those individual type 2 diabetic is not really a type 2. They're a different kind of diabetic. It's called MODY. And they've been on the wrong medication for years. So we've now shifted them over to the proper medication and so on and so forth. So the point is that genome was very, very powerful for finding a lot of these technologies. Here's the case of the lymphoma that was found by several means, with some blood markers, as well as they had an enlarged spleen that was picked up by imaging. Here's one of these pre-cancers, individual with something called MGUS. They had more of a particular protein, it's called IgM, in their blood than everyone else. So they had given 2 samples, and their 2 samples just much, much higher. Follow-up studies said, oh, they have this pre-cancer, and so they'll get monitored a lot more efficiently. I have my own ideas how they should probably react, but anyway, this is important. There's another pre-cancer person as well. We had 6 people with plaques in their arteries. I'm one of the 6. This is not me, but it could just easily, they're small, modest-sized plaques, but the recommendation is that they'll get their statins increased, and that was done for me, and my plaque is shrinking. So by doing this imaging over the carotid artery, that turned out to be very, very powerful. We also looked a lot at cardiovascular disease and diabetes. This is what people thought they had coming into the study. So it turns out 9 thought they were diabetic, but there were 2 people who were diabetic who had no idea, and a whole bunch of people who were pre-diabetic who didn't know it. In fact, 90% of people who are pre-diabetic don't know it. And I guarantee there's a lot of you listening right now who are probably either diabetic or pre-diabetic who don't know it. And then during the course of the study, they basically, others got diabetic range values. 9 individuals developed diabetes, Others develop prediabetes, and we're very curious, how do people become diabetic? Because that hasn't really been studied before. For example, do people just gradually become diabetic? Do they spike their way there? What's going on? And it turns out that of 7 people, there were 9 who became diabetic. 2 got there by gaining weight, and some of them actually lost it later. But the other 7 became diabetic in a different way. 5 of the 7 just gradually became diabetic. So this is fasting glucose in orange here. They basically gradually went up to the point where they diagnosed as diabetic. Another marker for diabetes called hemoglobin A1C that went up. So another person went up by a different kind of measurement. It's called oral glucose tolerance test. But so these folks gradually became diabetic. There were 2 people who spiked their way into diabetes. I'm one of the 2. In my case, I initially became diabetic after a very nasty viral infection. This is my plot. This is my fasting glucose. And so right after the viral infection, I happened to get measured for glucose, and it was abnormally high. And in fact, we later, as we kept following it, hit diabetic range. I had to completely change the food I ate, exercise. I actually started running and brought my levels very low and got it under control. This is actually about 10 months. This is about 8 years of data, by the way. And so it's over 8 years, in fact. And in fact, it had been running so boringly low, I stopped looking at it. And then somebody looked at it here and said, oh, Mike, you're back to diabetic values again for glucose and this hemoglobin A1C. This is another, again, marker of diabetes. And I looked back, and sure enough, I spiked my way there. So me and another person both spiked into diabetic as though something triggered it. In my case, we think it was viral infection. The second time I became diabetic, I did get a viral infection, but I also stopped running right at that time. So running exercise may have been very, very important. So I started running. I could bring it down again, but I never totally got it under control. So it gradually kept creeping up. And so, in fact, it got to the point where it was in the low 6s. And so I switched from running to actually lifting weights, which you probably can't tell, but I actually now have increased my muscle mass because the idea that was better for glucose homeostasis. It didn't work. It failed miserably. I kept increasing my glucose and my hemoglobin A1C. In the end, the way we solved this was actually by doing more studies on me, and we realized that actually I'm insulin sensitive, so my cells respond to insulin. I also make insulin just fine, but the big problem is I don't release it from the pancreas. And so it turns out, I forgot to say, but I don't respond to metformin, which is a real problem. So my glucose got very, very high. And so in the end, there's a very specific drug, it's called rapigluline, that actually reduces it, promotes release of insulin from the pancreas. And the point out of all this, if you don't follow it very carefully, is that by knowing exactly what was wrong with me, we could take the right drug, and that's worked actually very, very well for me. So this is what we call precision diabetes. By understanding exactly what's wrong, you can prescribe the right drugs in the right circumstances and get the best effect. So this is how we envision keeping people healthy. Make lots of these detailed measurements, be able to better prescribe when needed the right medicines, catch disease early, manage it if you can by running and diet. So there's all kinds of ways to better manage people's health, and these advanced technologies let us better interpret people's health. Now, one of the most important things we learned, and this is a very, very important lesson, and might be a little complicated if you're not a scientist, but the concept's simple. What we discovered is that people, no matter how you measure them, their molecular measurements are very, very personal. So we can measure, for example, all the things that are in their blood with clinical tests or with these immune markers called cytokines or metabolites. And each dot is a different visit, each color is a different person. And the point out of all this is that no matter how you measure people, people's molecular profiles are actually very personal and they're very stable over time. So if I were to measure each of you, you would all have very different profiles and they would stay very, very stable over time. And this is a big deal because it turns out that even when you get disease, you will shift your measurements, but you still look more like you than anyone else. So by the way, I'm the light blue person. So all my measurements are here. here's the red person, all their measurements are together, the brown person, so on and so forth. So your measurements are very, very personal, very, very stable. And it turns out if you get ill or gain weight or lose weight, you will actually shift your measurements, but you still look more like you than anyone else. So again, these molecular profiles are very, very stable. So that's a big deal, because what it means is that the difference between the disease you and the healthy you is smaller than the difference between you and other people listening in on this call. So the point out of all this is that your personal profile is very stable. And if I want to tell the disease you, when it first comes, say disease comes on, the way to do that is by knowing I have your healthy baseline and finding that change. So I can find the delta, so to speak, very, very easily, but I'll never find it if I'm trying to compare a disease you relative to lots of other healthy people. The differences are too large. So we argue it's very, very important to be measuring people's healthy baseline, then finding the shift from that baseline. Okay. So I told you that's by far the most important thing I'm going to tell you in this call. Get your measurements while you're healthy so you can see when you're shifting into disease. Okay, so I told you most molecules are pretty stable over time, and that's true. But there are a small number that will change with age. So we're measuring people over fairly long periods, in some cases up to, in my case, we've been measuring me for 10 years. Forgot to say the cohort as a whole, these 109 people, we've been measuring for about 7.5 years now, so quite a while. But even from the first couple of years of data, say first 3 years of data, there's a small set of molecules that do change with time. These are aging markers. And so it turns out we can see how people age, and people age differently. I'm actually person one here. I'm a very typical ager. My coagulation pathway goes up, some metabolic markers, other things gradually go up. But here's a different person. They age differently. They mostly age in their cardiac pathway. So their heart, they're cardio agers, if you will. They're aging mostly around heart issues and cardiovascular disease. And in fact, we can take the different people we have and we can group them into classes. There's going to be more than this, but there's 4 general classes we teased out so far. Again, there'll be many more than this. Each column is a different person. Each row is one of these different, we call them ageotypes. So, you know, how are you aging? And some people are kidney agers, some are liver, some are metabolic, some are immune, and some are all of these. So these folks down here, these last 4, they're aging in all 4 categories. This person here, he's aging in 3 of the 4 categories. I'm somewhere in here. I'm not much of an immunoager, but I think I age a lot more, maybe on this one. Oh, probably this one. I'm both a metabolic, liver, and kidney ager, but I'm not so much on the immune side. Here's someone who's mostly a kidney ager. Other people are metabolic and kidney agers and so on. So we can actually see how different people are aging and do this all over an actionable time frame, meaning within 2 years. And so if you think about it, you hear about all these anti-aging remedies out there, lithium and things. If you start taking those things, you have no idea if they're working or not. There's no way to know because you can't measure if you're getting, you know, if you're slowing down your aging or possibly even reversing it, which I do think, by the way, is possible. So anyway, we can see how people are aging. And some of this information is clinically actionable. So that is to say, we have some markers, like this is a marker for glucose called hemoglobin A1C. This should say creatinine. This is a marker for kidney function. And so we can see how different people are aging. And it turns out each bar is a different person here. The population as a whole goes up in ways you would expect. So most people's hemoglobin A1C, most people's glucose goes up over time, and that's what we see for the group as a whole. What's really cool is that some people, yes, they are going up, but actually some people are going down. Some people seem to be able to reverse their aging, or at least slowing it down. We actually can show by different measures. Some people seem to be reversing their aging. Some cases we have explanations like they're exercising or they've lost weight, they've undergone some dietary restrictions. And so we can actually, for some people, follow. So this is really actionable information is the point, that when we tell you how you're aging, you could actually try to control that to some extent in the creatinine, which is a measure of kidney function, we found 10 people who were significantly decreasing their creatinine levels, meaning they were improving their kidney function. And it turns out that 8 of the 10 are on statins, so we think that may have a positive benefit. So the point out of all this, we can see how people are aging, and actually use this in actionable fashion. So we think this is pretty interesting.
So Michael?
Now I have, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, hi. I think you have 5 minutes more, so we can have.
Okay. I didn't realize. Okay. I thought this was longer.
Okay.
So that's fine. I'm glad you told me that.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that's not a problem at all. I'll just tell you one other very cool story. Anyway, we spun this off as a company and are actually doing a commercial version of this. It's going very well. It's helped a lot of people. We call it people with early pancreatic, prostate, ovarian cancer, etc. All right, I'm going to tell you one last story about our wearables. We're very, very keen on wearable data because we think this is very powerful. These devices, you may know, are worn by millions of people. They let you make hundreds of thousands of measurements every day. And wearables, they can track many, many different things you probably know. They'll track heart rate and skin temperature and sleep and all kinds of different things. So they're very, very powerful. At the time we entered this, most people were using them for fitness devices. And we wound up using them for basically physiological monitors for following people's health. And so the way we use these, I'll just tell you with the smartwatch, I'll focus on that since we're low on time. And basically what we do is we tease out people's daily patterns. So this is mine, this is my sleep, heart rate, skin temperature. Then we tease out, this is my circadian pattern, this is 2 months of data. And then we learn people's baseline, and then we find changes from the baseline. And I can tell you, we wound up using this to actually figure out when people are getting ill. So I actually was able to tell, I won't go through the details of this, but I could pick up my Lyme disease, is how I discovered it, from a smartwatch and a simple pulse ox. We could see my blood oxygen was abnormally low, and it was on an airline flight, never returned. My heart rate was high, my skin temperature high. So smartwatch was able to pick up all these different changes, and it was clearly, it helped me figure out this is due to Lyme disease, and then actually was tested and was positive, and a very well-controlled experiment. And then we could go on and show that it was very powerful for picking up respiratory viral infections as well. So the reality is we could tell when I was getting viral infections just from a simple smartwatch, it turns out, because I had high heart rate and high skin temperature. So 4 times I got sick, one of which was Lyme, 2 were viral infections, this one and this one. This is an asymptomatic time. That's a big deal. Every single time we could tell, because I had high heart rate and skin temperature, and we wrote an algorithm. I won't go through details, but we could see actually how this was all happening. And it works on me, it worked on 3 other people. Every time people get sick, they get a high heart rate. So why is this important? Well, here we go. COVID-19 is hitting now. We think wearables are going to be a fantastic way to actually tell when people are getting ill before they know it. And I'll show you, we've started the study. You guys can all enroll. You just need to have your own wearable device. Use this, come in through this area right now. Feel free to sign up. We pulled in people who are COVID-19 positive, have diagnosis and symptom dates. And this is our very first person. This is a person who we're following heart rate, change in heart rate. This is when they were diagnosed. This is when they got symptoms. And it turns out 9.5 days before they had symptoms, we saw their heart rate go up retrospectively. So the point is, we can tell this person's been running around asymptomatic, spreading COVID-19, having no idea for 9.5 days. And we can now detect it. We have an alerting system. So the point out of all this, we think wearables are going to be very, very powerful for telling you when you get sick by COVID. So we're actually now scaling this up and we've set up a whole platform to scale this for millions and millions of people. So we think we have an early detection system now that'll be super powerful. I'll just say we do a lot with continuous glucose monitoring for helping people with diabetes. We do a lot with air monitoring for measuring people's exposures. And then, sorry, I didn't realize that, but the bottom line is we can pull this data into a dashboard on your iPhone. So we think your iPhone is going to be your most important health instrument of the future. This is where the real innovation is, pulling this up, measuring it real time, feeding back data with alarming system when things go out of control. And you won't do this in isolation, you'll do it with your physician. And so I think at the end of the day, we're going to do things like genome sequencing, very deep molecular measurements, wearable data to better manage people's health and hopefully keep people healthier and happier for much, much longer lifetime. So that's really the goal, what we're doing. I have an amazing lab that's helped with this. When you shall, Brian Pining, others led a lot of this project. And then we have an incredible wearables team that's helping manage this as well. So with that in mind, I think I'll wrap up and take questions if you have any. I hope that was good.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. Thank you so much. We'll start now the Q&A session. And we have one question for Dr. Samar. Prof. Samar, the question is, what do you mean with numerous management tools?
No, numerous. Well, what were, oh, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. When we said numerous management tools, that mean when I talk about inclusiveness of the managers and leaders, how they use different management style and different management tools through contacting, through effective communication, through the process of the leadership, through the teamwork. So he used different management style and different management process. So this is what we mean by he's not sticking to one. He's not sticking to every time according to the position, according to the environment he has, according to situations he will face. He will use the different management tools.
Yeah. So my reaction to this is we're trying to send this back to the consumer. That is to say, the individual will actually be getting a lot of the data, especially the wearable data. And they'll be the one making the decisions and helping better manage your health. So it's actually putting things a little bit echo going on here, but we're trying to bring this back to the consumer so people can actually have a lot of control over their own data. They can share it. Now in a pandemic like what we're doing now, it is true you can do epidemiological following and follow spreads, and you can use a management system for that. But as much as possible, we're trying to put things back to the individual so people take better control of their health. And then we'll need behavioral management styles to be most effective about this.
Interesting, thank you. This question is for you, Dr. Michael. How do you move these studies, which are possible in laboratory settings, to be able to study people at scale in a large population?
Yeah, great question. So I think academia is very, very good for research and proof of principle, but we're absolutely terrible about scaling. So this is why we founded this company, Cube Bio. I founded other companies that actually want to scale this, and they'll do it much, much more efficiently than our lab will. So that's how we'll do it. We'll also partner with various other, hospitals, things like that. There are many people reaching out to us now. So we're trying to implement a lot of what we do into their normal practice.
Yep.
By the way, I wear lots of smartwatches. 3 smartwatches and 1 ring sensor as well. So I'm a big believer in everything I'm telling you.
Dr. Samar, this question is for you. How can the teamwork participate in the innovation without having conflicts idea?
Well, trying to, in academia, people worry a lot about egos and getting first author papers.
No. Once I have been showing that how can the innovative leaders start the process of innovations. Once he empower every, you see that the cycle when you empower the team, and through the empowerment and through gathering the using a special tool for idea thinking, design, how to make a priority for these ideas, let everybody put his input, give everybody the time to express the ideas, and through these tools of designing ideas and exploring the ideas, there is a way to analyze which idea is going through the opportunities, which ideas is matching our objectives, our vision and missions, and he will be agree with us that maybe his idea is not going through this process. So it's a scientific process and need
Right.
a separate workshop for that.
Yeah, I think so. What we do is we give a lot of time for, team discussions and things like this. So we'll have, a lot of team meetings, and we try and foster an environment where everybody says what they're thinking and feels, totally unabashed about what they want to say and present. So we're very keen on that. And then how to prioritize those. In the US, we give a lot of freedom to our students and postdocs, so we often let them run with their own ideas. But some do have to get prioritized as well. And it's a balance. And, at the end of the day, I guess I'm the PI of the group, so I probably make a lot of decisions about which ones to go forward with. But
and usually the innovative leader will find the way. He will find the way. Yes. And he will go with his way.
Totally. Yep. Totally agree.
Okay, we have another question. It's about, it's actually for Prof. Summer. Thank you very much for your invaluable presentation. And as you know, innovation is a multidisciplinary concept. How can we make different disciplines in our university think in a holistic way towards innovation process? This is very important.
I would like to thank, I think, Khalid, he said that. Dr. It's a smart, Muhammad Abdul Majid maybe. It's a very smart questions, because yes, yeah. When you talk about education, innovation in education, and you talk about innovative leaders and innovative teaching process, it is a holistic thing. I agree, totally agree. It is a holistic thing. But because of my time, I concentrate to the role of the head of the department. And also the rule that I showed to you, it's only part of it, that how to be innovative through the communications and the collaboration with the students, communication and teamwork. But there is a lot of tools and a lot of things to talk about regarding the process, regarding the ideas, regarding the different contact that you have to deal with it, and the outcome, the graduates. So I totally agree with you. It's a holistic thing, multidisciplinary. It doesn't need 45 minutes to talk. It needs at least 6-hour workshop. Thank you.
I'd agree with all that. Bring in all different kinds of people.
Yes. Another question for Dr. Michael. Have you seen differences to therapeutic responses in the aging population between young children due to these types of profiles?
We're not really studying young children much. So partly because our IRB, the research board, does not let us do that. We mostly study adults, but we definitely see different people responding differently. And we would argue that's why it's really, really important to understand mechanistically what's going on. I'm a good example. I don't respond to I'm diabetic, but I don't respond to metformin, but I respond to other drugs. And now we have a molecular explanation for that. So I do think people in these complex diseases, they're diseased in different ways. And so I think—
Dr. Michael, we have to study through the Z generation and millennium generation in a different way.
Totally agree. Yes, totally agree. Very good.
Dr. Snyder, I have a question. How can we empower the partnership with the private sector when it comes to research in general, between the academic departments and the private sectors? How can we work on that in a more focused way?
Yeah, I think we don't do that as well as we could. I'm in Silicon Valley, so it's very common to spin off companies. I've founded 12 companies over the years, and that's one way to do it, especially when you start a new area. Other ways to try to do it are to partner with big pharma, but that can be very difficult many times because they're very entrenched in their ways. So I think as Dr. Asalagov was saying, that you should, you know, try to bring in innovative thinking and re-educate people, I think is a big part of this. So, but
this is what I did with Boeing. Boeing, when I met with the vice presidents, and I tried to convince her through effective communications that how can she help us in sponsoring research for medical colleges. And she said, we are Boeing, how can I can sponsor IT programs, I can sponsor something safety program, but medical colleges. So I told her the ideas of noising and also the long-standing. There is one of the College of Rehabilitation. They think about shoes, special shoes that will make the employee, when they have a long standing situation, they have a comfortable shoes. So she really admired the ideas, and she gave us a research budget.
Great.
Yep. There is another question for Professor Michael. What was the viral infection that triggered your diabetes?
It was respiratory syncytial virus. Believe it or not, we knew it because we're always measuring things. So that was, yeah, that's a common infection in kids. Not very common in adults, but adults do get it. And when they get it, they get pretty severely ill. And that was true for me. I was out for several days. So we think it had a strong impact. And we actually think, believe it or not, it changed my epigenome as well. We made some measurements there, and it's really quite fascinating. So, and other people have had stories about viral infections triggering their diabetes as well.
Okay, another question for Prof. Summer. If you don't mind explaining scale and sustain in education.
معلش سؤال تاني يا هبة.
She wants you to explain scale and sustain in education.
The scale and the sustain.
Yes.
When we talk about innovation in a different and better way, once you do it, as we said, if you do things in the same way and with the same process, you will have the same result. But once you make it in a different way and a better way, as I said, substantially and significantly, and be sure that it will be sustainable and to the scale up to the scale of your students and to your faculty abilities. This is what we mean by process of motivations.
Yes, thank you.
And innovation, process of innovations.
With this, we don't have any further question, but we have with us Professor Asif, if he would like. He was one of our distinguished speakers previously. He joined us in a previous lecture talk in the summer webinars. If he would like to ask some question.
Sure. I don't know. Let me unmute myself. Am I unmuted?
Yes, yes, Dr. Asif.
I really enjoyed both of your talks. Different but very exciting. For Professor Summer, I had a question for you, because when I was talking about leadership and diversity, and because that increases productivity. And I wondered what is your take on that, on leadership with diversity and how that impacts on innovation? And for Professor Snyder, so just to let you know, Michael, I was a visiting professor at Stanford in 2009 and 11. And I always, in fact, when you went into lockdown this time, I informed our government and other places that we need to go into lockdown, because Stanford is usually light years ahead of other places. And so if you're doing it, and I knew that this is coming. Anyway, but I wanted to ask you on the question on personalized medicine that you talked about, or personalized health. Whether do you think targeted therapeutics, where do they fit into that? Where you've identified the molecular pathways, And so we've also developed a treatment for preeclampsia. And so I'm wondering what's your take on that, because not everywhere can you do the genomic profiling, proteomic profiling like you can in Stanford, which has fantastic facilities.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will ultimately be everywhere. Most chronic diseases are very heterogeneous, as I'm sure you know, and different therapies will certainly work well for different types, subtypes. So I think the deep profiling we do will be very powerful for finding the subtypes and then hopefully defining the therapies. And I'm a good example. I respond well to one kind of diabetic medication, but not so well to others. And that was teased out because I understood the mechanism of what was wrong with me. So I hope that'll be true for other kinds of diseases as well. So at least that's the plan and the hope.
Professor Summers,
I can, my answer will be, Dr. Asif, that innovative leaders, he knows that there is a lot of disciplines and there is a lot of differences between the teams, and he create a professional learning community. He create the culture to adopt all the diversities. He enhanced the collective creativity and knowledge. He changed rules into principles. He delegated responsibility for accountable places and accountable person. So I think he can deal with all these discipline and differences.
Yeah, I was really trying to get on, if you think of Japan, one of the things, the reason they were very good at successful at making cars was they allowed the shop floor to be innovative. So diversity in a way was dissipated, even though they have a very homogeneous population. They allowed, so if you have an idea, you don't need to bring it to me to get approval. You just do it there and then. I mean, and COVID has shown that to be the case. That's one thing. The other thing to talk about, at least in the UK, where because, and I think in the United States, where Black Lives Matter has taken a big fall, leadership must reflect the population base of your institution. So people, they relate to people who they look like them. So they feel, so that's another thing. And so you don't have to look like them, but you have to empathize with them. That's something, I don't know what either of you have.
Absolutely right. Empathy and leading by humanity, and you lead by, you don't delegate, you lead by innovations, you lead by creativities. You ensure every person in your team that you listen to him and you get their ideas, and to convince him and engage him in all the process. Engagement and marketing for your ideas and for their idea is very important.
I have a question for Dr. Michael. You are the head of the Department for Genetics with many well-known scientists in the department. Yes, how easy and hard to lead them in the same time?
Well, maybe this is a US philosophy, but my mission is always to hire the very, very best people and let them go their own way.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, I think we should be inventing fields that don't exist now. So we give a lot of individual freedom, and it's up to them. They have to get research grants and things, attract really smart people into their lab. But a lot of it's just giving freedom and giving an environment that fosters creativity. That's really what we try to do.
It's a very important and critical issues in academic department is how can you create this environment, where everyone is in harmony and can be innovative in the same time,
I believe, Hiba, it's that, and I want to say something that the department is the important core in the universities. I feel that the department and the department head and the department team, every university is depending on their rules and in their innovations, because they are a small university, actually. And
Yes.
from there, we disseminate to the bigger achievements.
And I think if I can say, Professor Haber, the one thing to remember, the success of the United States happened after post 1945 was because they had immigration. They were able to recruit the very best from Germany because of what happened in Germany to the US. And those people made, so well, I always say, bring talent to build talent. If you don't, and that's the success of Stanford as well. And so I'm grateful to President Trump for stopping your visa, because the students are coming to us.
Yeah, no, I agree. They are facilitating a lot of immigrant visa for the physicians.
Yeah, I think the other thing I would say that's important, we're talking a lot about the environment, is just giving people respect, respecting their ideas, making an environment where people are not afraid. They'll throw out so-called dumb ideas that turn out to be great ideas, right? They may sound dumb at first, but the more, and in fact, if you think about it, the most creative ideas will be very, very different. People won't know how to react to them. And so to me, that's what's very special about Stanford and the Bay Area in general, that we have that kind of climate here for just respecting people's opinions, people, you know, fostering the idea of throwing out just fantastic ideas.
Yeah.
And hard work. I mean, I think people.
And hard work, yeah. Well, people are excited about what they do. People, it's not work if you're excited about what you're doing.
Yeah. And I would say to remember, fail means first attempt in learning. So people, we as leaders, we have to make people not be afraid to fail.
That's very true, and that's very.
And this
unique.
This is actually I have it. This experience I have it with my physician when I try to place them in match program in medical residency. I usually empower them that if you fail the first time, that means that you cannot do it in the next time. And usually they successfully do it. And we now ranked in the fourth, we rank in up to the fourth physicians the Kingdom Saudi Arabia is ranking in number 4 in the physician training.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We tell students when we're recruiting them, if you come here, we expect you to fail. You should try ideas that don't always work. And yeah, that, you know, that attracts them. They like the idea of trying to do something very transformative.
Yeah. Thank you so much, all of you. With this, we have come to the end of our 6th webinar.
Thank you so much, Hiba.
Thank you, Prof. Samar. Thank you, Dr. Michael. Thank you, Prof. Asif, for joining us.
Pleasure.
We hosted today Professor Samar Saggaf, our homegrown professor who spoke about innovative leadership, and Professor Snyder, who spoke about research of big data and health. We sincerely thank them for enriching tonight's webinar. Our next webinar will be in Arabic, inshallah, in which we will host the Deputy Minister for Higher Education, His Excellency Dr. Abdurrahman Al-Khurayef. Thank you everyone again for attending today's webinar. Stay safe and well, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.